Welcome back to another segment of Arizona Mortgage News. We're here with Mike Goblet, our Arizona mortgage expert with United Mortgage and Financial Group. Good morning, Mike.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
Pretty good. So, understanding the mortgage process, was that the topic for today?
That is the topic. And in terms of the things to understand throughout the whole mortgage process, the appraisal becomes one of the key things. And it's really kind of interesting because as much of an important part as it is, it's also the most often misunderstood and most emotionally involved, even by many of the professionals within the industry. But that almost only happens when they don't agree with the value being high enough.
Very nice.
So,
well, I like this approach. So we're going to take a step back and take a good 10,000-foot level of the whole process.
Of the appraisal process, yes.
All right.
So it's actually interesting. Do you know not all mortgages actually need a full appraisal?
Did not know that.
Yeah, actually, now while every purchase transaction and every cash out refinance transaction will need a full appraisal, many times we'll be able to get what's called an appraisal waiver if the estimated value comes in on target with what we say. And there's a system, an automated system out there similar to Zillow that goes out and says, well, the value of this house is approximately this. And if it matches, we're very likely to get an appraisal waiver and not even need an appraisal.
Interesting.
So, sometimes they'll even refine.
The Zillow, is that actually something that is a good benchmark to look at?
You know what? To me, it's a ballpark. And it really gets down into neighborhoods, the amount of transactions that have happened, the uniqueness of the neighborhood. It can be a good gauge because it does track recent sales. So it gives a good ballpark range. But so I'm looking at on a $250,000 home, it could be $25,000, $30,000 either side of that $250,000. But if somebody says, no, my house is worth $400,000 and Zillow says $250,000, not likely this is going to work.
Makes sense. So you have a better model.
Well, I don't have a better model, quite candidly. I'm not sure what the better model that exists would be, but if a full appraisal is required, there's a couple of things to keep in mind besides the process. And I think that's the first perspective of keep in mind, this is an opinion. And that's really the way it's phrased. The appraisal is the opinion of value of the person by the appraiser themselves. It's not a fact, and don't take it personal. Okay.
All right. So
it's also important that you understand now that the appraisal also doesn't stay with the house. Okay. In other words, when you're usually done with it, be it a purchase or whatever, a refinance, that transaction is done. And that appraisal was only used for that. The only exception being an FHA purchase, which now if you tried to get an FHA mortgage, had an appraisal done, that value will stay with an FHA loan for 6 months, even if it's a new buyer coming in. It uses that appraised value. So that being said, the process has really changed over the last few years as a result of the mortgage meltdown. Lenders, banks, brokers like myself are not only not allowed to choose the appraiser, we're not even allowed to talk to the appraiser during the process. All of us must go to what's called the neutral third party, an appraisal management corporation assigned by the lender off of their website. We go to this third party, this AMC, put in a request for the appraisal. They send it out to the people on their appraisal list. And then what happens actually is the appraisers, the first one that says, I'll take that, gets it. So it's not about selection. It's not about approving. It's just reaching out and you get whoever you get.
Makes sense. No more aligning your appraisers with the financial institutions.
Yeah, they felt there was collusion going on in the past, and maybe there was. So they put in this third intermediate step. And again, the bank, myself, nobody's allowed to talk directly to the appraiser during the process. Now, by the way, that's good in many ways, but it's also had unintended consequences, but I'm not going to get into that debate. So
take your word for it.
So the real key is, what does the appraiser do? Well, as soon as they say, I'll take that assignment, they go to the county tax records and pull the records for that house. So it shows what the square footage should be, when it was built, etc. That's assigned to it. Then they'll go out, make an appointment with you or whoever to go out and confirm the information on the tax records that they're right, look at any improvements that were done and upgrades that have been, created, so that they can get a better assessment of what's going on in the house. Now, keep in mind, when I say upgrades, what we think of upgrades, the appraiser may not, or it may not have a housing value. If you put a new roof on your house, you say, boy, that's good, I improved the value of my house. No, the appraised value didn't improve because the house is expected to come with a roof. Now, if it has a problem, that's something else. But carpeting, fresh paint, all good saleable points, and that will help the sale of the home, but they don't improve the appraised value of the home.
Okay.
So also be aware that when the appraiser goes in and does that evaluation, they will make note of any situations that they considered hazardous. Open electrical outlets, swimming pools by rule have to have water in them. If they believe there's any health or safety situations, they will note that in their appraisal. And actually the underwriter reviews it, if you go back to my underwriting piece, and make sure that anything that's noted by the appraiser gets corrected.
Seems fair. So a pre-punch list.
It's a pre-punch list, yep. So in terms of the report itself, once the appraiser goes back with his assessment, takes all his notes about the house, they'll go back and look at the marketplace and find the 3 most recent comparable sales. And there's a little bit of different criteria of what's the most comparable sales that get involved with geography, which get involved with mileage, type of homes at that. There's specific guidelines that we don't always agree with as homeowners, but the appraiser, it has to use them. So, but once they do that, you understand, I mean, all homes are not alike, even though they may have sold recently. So there are assessments about, for instance, square footage or lot size, or whether it has a pool, that have plus or minuses with the home that's being assessed. And they're required to use certain percentages to increase or decrease the value of the home, okay? That's how they get to a true apple to apple, theoretically, comparison of the values.
And based on the timing, those sales can really help you or they can hurt you.
Exactly, because one of the things that isn't taken into account, for instance, if you have a next door neighbor that's in a fire sale of a home, meaning I got to get rid of it, I don't know anything on it, I'm going to sell it for whatever I can. That's not taken into account in terms of, well, the value should have been. No, it's what did they sell it for? That is the value. Sometimes you need to be careful as well. You may say a house sells for something up the street without realizing that there are seller paid concessions. So those get reduced off the value of the house. So it may have sold for $259,000, but if there were $10,000 in seller paid concessions, Effectively, it was $249.
Makes sense.
Those are nuances of the appraisal system that need to be understood or will be considered. Once the appraiser goes back, does his report, he gives 3 responses, only one of which is actually used most of the time. They'll give a sales comparison approach, meaning what's the value compared to the sales, the cost approach, what would it cost to rebuild it, and then the third, which is always used for investment properties, is the income capitalization approach, meaning what would it rent for if it were a rental, okay? So those are the 3 reports that they give.
Very good.
So what are the most important things to know about an appraisal? Well, a lot of what we talked about, but most importantly, understand it's a matter of opinion. It's not a matter of fact, even though it's going to be used as a matter of fact for that specific transaction. Don't take the results personally if you don't like them. Before you have an appraisal done, make sure all construction work of that type is done or completed. Otherwise, you'll need a follow-up appointment. For instance, if there's electrical that needs to be wound up yet or something, you're going to force the appraiser to note that, and the underwriter will make them come back with another trip appointment to go out and make sure it's been done. So therefore, there's another cost involved in the appraisal. Another key thing to make sure is if you have a home, has there been any unpermitted work done on it? Meaning construction work that affected the size of the home that didn't have a building permit when it was done. If that happens, what's going to happen is they'll make you go back, get a work permit evaluation, and have a permit approval before the loan transaction can go through.
Interesting.
One classic example to me is we had this party that put a wall into their home that separated this bathroom effectively from the rest of the house. And it was unpermitted. It worked for them, but when it was noted by the appraiser, they made the owner go back, remove the wall, and because it affected the health or safety in the mind of the underwriter, and so it had to be taken down.
Interesting.
So the real question is, can you contest an appraisal? The answer is yeah, you can contest it. However, that being said, you have to be able to provide at least 2 comps that you feel are better suited for the appraised value than the ones given by the appraiser, and why they're better suited. Then keep in mind the appraiser has the ability to rebut and say why his are better choices. And candidly, the lender is not trying to find reasons to increase the value of the home. So we have contested other appraisals and actually won a couple, but they're few and far between.
So a lot of energy for a low probability of change.
That's likely to be the case, but it happens a lot of time in purchase agreements, particularly by the selling agent that wants a better value. And like I said, once in a while we can find reasons on why either better comps or why things were undervalued, but it seldom gets done. But
I see.
So the bottom line is, the appraisal is a very important part of the mortgage transaction, but you have little control over it, and don't take it personally.
All right, good advice. Well, if there's people out there that have questions for you regarding appraisals or mortgages in general, what's the best way to get in touch with you, Mike?
Well, obviously, you can call me at the office at 480-503-3533 or my cell phone at 480-220-2329, or email me at mike.goblet at our company initials UMG fginc.com.
Excellent. Well, thanks for answering the questions on appraisals. Seems like it's a process that you got to go through, and you don't have a lot of options. But in your hands, it seems like you may have a few more.
Well, again, I'm not in control because I'm not allowed to talk to the processor or the appraiser during the process either. So, but we'll help in any way that we can.
Very good. Well, enjoy your fourth, Mike. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Matt. You too. Take care.